Well, for a little bit more on this, we're now joined in studio by Aldworth Mbalati, who's the CEO of DNG Energy. Thanks very much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Thank you very much to you and to the listeners, and I appreciate being here.
All right, so we talk about renewable energy quite a bit, and we hear it's almost as if there's a us versus them. Fossil fuels, traditional fuels, and these new energy sources. Where are we in terms of A, our ability to transition, and B, the argument that goes on is that we've got so much of this resource that we can't just jump to renewable overnight?
Well, you know, we all have to become pragmatic South Africans. We have a real issue. Without energy, there's no economic growth. Without economic growth, there are no jobs created. Without jobs being created, we have high crime. We end up being in the doldrums. What we need to do is to stop being in a policy mode and get into action mode. Let's look at what is it that we have already. We already have generating units which have not been maintained well. Let's maintain them. Let's get it going. Get them to work, right? We understand, we believe in climate change. Fine. What do we do then? That is a problem of tomorrow. Today, we've got people that are hungry. Today, we need to get people working. Let's use what we have, which is the current coal scenario or the current equipment that we're using for generation. Let's get it back to par. Once we have that, we can continue in terms of moving and using another abundant resource, which is the sun, another abundant resource, which is the wind. We can use a myriad of solutions. So as South Africa, we just need to get into the culture of excellence. And if we become people of excellence, I believe that this country of ours will change in a great manner.
So what you're saying is fix what's broken and then start to roll out the new energies and the new solutions. But it may take time to fix what's broken.
Well, in Japan, they can replace a highway in a very short span of time. In other countries, they can maintain things very quickly. We have pro-South Africans that are sitting in the UK, that are sitting in the Emirates, that are sitting wherever globally. Bring them back. If you want to create a state of emergency on power, bring those skills back. Allow the things to be fixed. Run Eskom like it should, as a proper enterprise, in a sense of making sure that those things are fixed.
What's holding us back then? Is it politicians? Is it management at the power utility? What is holding us back getting to this point of action?
Playing the blame game is not a fair scenario. Let me speak as a South African. If you're hungry, what do? You stand up, you do something, you go get some food and eat. It seems as if we are not, we're not feeling the pain enough for us to really stand up and do what we need to do. It doesn't matter. Government is supposed, or politicians are supposed to give you political guidance. What are we doing as professionals in terms of saying, yes, we understand you as politicians, but we're going to take up our arms and we're going to do what is professionally required of us in terms of contributing, in terms of making whatever energy production methodology we have and make it better.
Do you think that policy sometimes is what's getting in the way? In other words, this should be fast tracking some of these energy providers so that they can contribute into the grid almost immediately.
South Africa has some of the best policies in the world. We are amazing at coming up with policy. Our problem has been on the part of implementation and values, right? If you value your neighbor in terms of doing what is right, you're going to give it your best and make sure that that generating unit is producing. Unfortunately, issues get clouded by what we call energy transition, right? The world is moving. We're coming from a base of coal, we're coming from a base of nuclear, but the world is moving into a cleaner environment where other technologies are taking the fray. So yes, solar is supposed to come into play. wind is supposed to come into play. Gas is supposed to come into play in terms of balancing wind and solar. So one of the most interesting statistics is that based on the huge sun resource that we have in South Africa, for every 5,000 megawatts of renewables, you only need 1,000 megawatts of gas as standby to fill in the gaps when there is no sun and there's no wind. And if we move into that fray, South Africa is going to become one of the countries that produces electricity at a cheaper cost, and making sure that we do it and support the environment by being clean in our approach. However, that is not the question that we need to be having, to say you can have all of those things. What are we doing in terms of making sure that we have enough grid capacity to absorb that technology? What are we doing to make sure that the lifespan of the current assets that we have are brought back to stream so that our levelized cost of electricity remains low? So that is the question. It is just a function of where we're getting it wrong from a cultural perspective as South Africans to do what is required to solve the problem.
I'm going to appoint you the energy minister right now. What do you do in the next 100 days?
Look, if I was a hypothetical energy minister for a day or for 100 days, one of the things that I would do is that I would remove the cap on the current providers of renewables. And that way it means that I would bring more power into the grid. I would issue an emergency request for proposals to say all those various sites come on stream in terms of making sure that you increase your capacity. And when you increase your capacity, it allows you to bring low level energy cost into the grid in a rapid manner. So within a year, you would end up having between 700 and 1,000 megawatts into the grid. So that is the first thing that I would do. The second thing is that there are those people that can afford to put solar on their roofs, right? And I would promulgate an act to say all municipalities are allowed to buy electricity from those who can put solar on their roofs. Meaning that when I'm not at home and I'm at work, my home can provide my place of work with electricity. And I would say that I'll be selling that electricity to the municipality at 75% of what I'm currently buying it at, meaning that the municipality still gets the income, but there is more power into the grid. Thirdly, I would bring back as many professionals as possible to come and fix up the generating units at Eskom. Number 4, I would issue an emergency request for proposal for those who have new renewable sites that are ready to come on stream with batteries. 5, I would get Eskom to say, put batteries where your network is not strong in order to make it that much stronger. And 6, I would look at those who can provide what we call dispatchable power to come and provide dispatchable power. That would ensure that our grid is stabilized and we are not in a position of load shedding within a period of 2 to 3 years.
All right. So, and all of that sounds great, but there is an aspect which you haven't dealt with. And that's the portion of revenue.
Yeah.
Because to do all of this, people need to pay for the electricity.
Yeah.
They can't be plugging into the systems and not paying. Municipalities are going broke because people are not paying their electricity. How do we manage that? Because that has to be dealt with at the same time, because you can fix all this equipment, but if you don't have the money to keep on doing the maintenance because you're not getting the revenue, what do you do?
That is a small portion of the balance sheet in terms of lost revenue. However, there's a way that you can fix that. I remember when we were growing that our government told us that they will give us free electricity, and there's merit in terms of getting free electricity. Why don't you create a system that works to say, if you are living in X household, don't steal electricity. I, as government, just like the social grant that has been created, I'll give you 350 rands worth of electricity, for example. But if I find you connecting illegally, that is prison time for you, right? When you do that, you can focus in terms of what is it that is coming from the fiscus to be able to help those people in terms of not having enough power, because we cannot sit here almighty saying that people ought to be paying. Some people cannot simply afford to pay, but create a system where everyone is connected, you know what the consumption is, and find a way of making sure that you can account for that revenue, and Eskom does get that money through other means.
All right. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. I guess in the end, in simple terms, stop policying and start actioning is the main message that you're sharing with us.
Correct. We have to act. And also, it has to go beyond acting. We need to have a culture of excellence as South Africans, because we are a great nation. And when we stand up, we do great things.
Aldworth Mbalati, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. And let's hope that messages like yours start to resonate in higher places and things start to change. Thank you for your thoughts.
Thank you so much.